Hi again. So, in continuation of what Teresa was saying, her organization also, in addition to doing this advocacy and to trying to get the word out about what's going on in the favelas and trying to change that, to remove that stigma, they partner up with community leaders and academics and technicians that want to work together. And that's how I came to meet Teresa. I reached out to her because I saw the website, and I wanted to work on my master's thesis at Pratt Institute, planning programs for sustainable planning and development in Brazil and favela, trying to create a sustainable participatory process for infrastructure development. The central question was really broad, really open. It was, how can we properly leverage the social and environmental assets, as Teresa was saying, that are existent within the current urban condition, so as to improve the quality of life of its residents. In my case, in the favelas in Rio. How do you leverage leadership and collaboration and other community assets into accountability and engagement in actual solutions? How do you leverage habitats and performance and systems in nature into biodiversity and better health in open spaces? Well, maybe it is as simple as community participation plus natural systems and actually engaging these different assets to create stronger and more vibrant solutions, more flexible solutions. Thinking of both the community and the ecosystem as a client and defining certain parameters, which I did with Teresa prior to establishing who that client might be, to actually understand who the optimal client might be to undertake a project. Through partnerships, infrastructural need, potential impact of the project, opportunity, and community buy-in and organization. So we partnered with Pica-Pau. It's a community in the center of the city, or just north of the center of the city, and Leonel da Silva. Pica-Pau, we are right now over here. Pica-Pau is actually almost, or by the airport, and the other UFRJ campus. If you zoom in, it is nearby a sewage treatment plant that may or may not be functioning, and another sewage plant that I don't think it is functioning anymore. It's in the neighborhood of Cordoville, and it sits along the Irajá River as it lets out into the Guanabara Bay by the airport. The official estimates say that there are about 2,300 people in Pica-Pau, and there was a potential for an urbanization project at the time in 2013 through the Morar Carioca Urban Revitalization Program. Those estimates are always low, but the potential impact was there. There are probably upwards of 4,000 people or more just in Pica-Pau, and 12,000 or much more in the neighboring communities that would be served by these potential projects. In fact, the sewage topic was broached with the community because there was some initial community input in the process, and so there was a designation for an infrastructure project for sewage in the community. So there was also that need, and there was the opportunity for removing areas of risk and reducing open sewage and the other problems related to that. The opportunity was presented in the process of Morar Carioca, where there could be participatory planning workshops and natural system incorporation into the existing project, or so we thought. The community was excited about this possibility. They wanted to engage further with the city, who they thought were not engaging with them anymore, and they wanted to get to use a set of tools that could actually pursue them to go forward with the projects. They had already been involved in environmental education and in political advocacy. They were very intertwined with the city government through educational programs in sustainability and rainforest management. So I decided to do a series of workshops with catalytic communities and the Residents Association and residents there, starting with organizing meetings, then transect walks, and community visioning workshops. So we're going to go through some of the methodology, and this is what I'm going to present here, and then we're going to go into some implemented solutions with the other projects. So transect walks are where a community walks through their own site with a technician, with an expert, so to speak, with an academic, and they designate what the problems are. They are actually creating that diagnosis. It's a group walk so that there's a variety of opinions. In this case, you can see the community guides ranged in age, in community tenure, how long they were there. They were of both genders, And there was a creation of iconography in order to easily identify and then easily expand the problems to be resolved. And we mapped this walk as we went along throughout the day. So there were group observations, there were resident diagnoses, we did interviews with the residents as we walked along, and some of the adaptations that were being provided by the community to resolve some of these issues were further explained in a more engaging way than the usual survey is done by the city or any other technical expert. The other result of this was a transect diagram where we sectioned off different areas of the community as identified by the residents. We talked about different problems that had been, or areas of problems that have been identified, and then we went along and identified through the iconography what the specific problems were in order to present to them on a later date. 2 weeks later, we did a community visioning workshop where about 80 people showed up out of the 2,000, or 3,000, where as people walked in, there were many objects on the table and toys. We worked on James Rojas's City as Play activity, where people have an open forum to work through their built environment issues via play. And it's an engaging situation, and people get to propose, connect the problems to potential solutions, or to or add additional problems and visions to the menu. After that, we discussed that activity, and we had an open discussion about the community as a whole, because we had a larger representation of the community. In this case, there were some rumors that people were going to be removed, so the discussion was much broader than just infrastructural need. And it was transparent. We didn't want to just dissuade people from talking about those problems. We wanted to incorporate them into this situation. After that, we did a priority reevaluation, so I showed the matrix of the priorities and we discussed that further. And I presented a very broad set of potential solutions via natural systems to some of these issues, priorities that might have been addressed by each system, obstacles to implementation, and potential visions that could incorporate these systems into larger solutions. So basically, a SWOT analysis for those of you who have worked with those before. The workshop then proceeded to aggregate people from different sections of different streets of the community and have them work through these potential problems and solutions and discuss it over a period of about half an hour, 45 minutes, and draw or write their own potential solutions or diagnoses. So I actually brought some of these if you want to look at later, but we had prioritized the solutions a bit further. We asked them to list their own potential priorities into this process, and then how they might incorporate some of these solutions or add further ones that we may not have even been aware of. So the takeaways: the residents' diagnosis in the transect walk was much more refined in a certain sense than the technical expert survey for the city. There were certain issues that were brought up about specific or temporal leaks or temporal problems with open sewage that may not have been visible during a static one-time or two-time survey. In addition, there may have been situations where the residents may not have been willing to show a problem to a technician, to a person from the city, where they were more willing to engage when they were engaged on their own terms, in a certain sense, which enriched the discussion. The complete mix of the formal and informal created a severe infrastructure failure, but also opportunity for more integrated action. And the lack of space for large proposals minimized some of the potential solutions that I had thought I could propose to them into more dynamic, smaller solutions. The community visioning workshops led to some leadership and accountability dialogue, because people felt that they were not having their voices heard in terms of the resident removals. So it was good to actually broach that topic and to incorporate that into all of the worries into this and create more accountability in the process. Some of the lessons, the timeline that I had for the project at intervention on site was quite short. It's usually a problem with an academic project, especially a student project. And the demographic, as a result, the demographic engagement was very narrow. We couldn't really engage with as many residents, as many types of residents as possible. And the advocacy and social infrastructure was strong, but it was definitely stratified. So there were some times where we couldn't really reach certain parts of the population and get their opinion. But then there were also job creation possibilities that people were very excited about and they really wanted to pursue. The separate design workshop would be necessary in this case, I think. Further workshops, that is, in order to really engage further and provide a potential pathway to incorporation. And then the monitoring and maintenance workshop to follow in order to actually maintain and create more permanent jobs out of these processes. And the feasibility does depend in some extent on technical experts. So the flexibility of the process is really what the strength was. We gave them a lot of potential ideas, and while we were not able to engage too much further because of the limitations presented, there is an opportunity for community-built individual projects or partnerships with other technical experts going forward. We tried, me and my advisor, David Sider of Future Green Studio, we tried to create a competition entry and get funding to go back and create a board game, a card game that showed some of these metrics and started to talk about these projects in more detail, and to actually give them, more information on the potential construction or details of some of these technologies, such as a composting toilet incorporated into a floating garden along the river, and some metrics about how much treatment of sewage or treatment of water each of these technologies presented, and partnered that with cards that presented problems and how much of a problem there was in the community. And so these cards would be played by community members on the board and would then present more information to be incorporated into this. However, some of the obstacles, as I said before, continued project development capacity from funding and organizational standpoint from us, then a continued local engagement capacity from as far as time of involvement that people are allowed, can allow themselves to participate until they get something back from it. And then employment opportunities as a result became a big problem. You can't just expect the community to participate to no end. And then Murah Carioca projects were stalled. They stopped. They've now been reinitiated because it's an election cycle, so you can draw your own conclusions from that. As a result, we think that the alternate vehicles of implementation, which we'll present next, are really the community-led, locally based ones with multiple partnerships are the ones that can be the strongest. And then, therefore, give them actual solutions.